It's a big one too, man. It's huge. Kept going, when's this thing going to be over? The stem was as big
as... It's a good sweat.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, they're good. They're full of dopamine.
Yeah.
I try to eat like 3 or 4 a day.
Wow.
And yeah, I like them. Fresh ones. All right, what are we doing here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, all right, we're live on 6 platforms. Let me spray the Merlin spray. Special Merlin spray. Special Merlin spray.
We need some of that.
I need something. I'm starting to smell like a bull. Welcome everybody on the live and the replay. We got a busy day today. We got 5 shows today. And I can't think of a better way to start it than with these 2 beautiful souls. We're going to be right back. So we are getting close to launching the website, looks like in 5 days. And in the meantime, we're still getting suppressed. So if you wouldn't mind sharing to one page or one group, that'd be really cool. Be right back in a minute, 19 seconds. We're going to allow some people time to come in, and then we'll get started. Okay, it's time to align technology, brain waves, motor skills.
I know, motor skills.
I know. What's up with that? Like, what is it with, I don't know. Okay, I'm going to just throw this one out there and tell me where you guys are at. Like, so we'll just talk about, I think like, it's pretty well accepted that the first 10 to 15 days in October were absolute like a living hell or some kind of purgatory, or everybody was going through something, and then it seemed to lift a little bit. And so it's been dream state is very active. You wake up very tired. 3D things are absolutely becoming almost impossible to do. I got people, I'm really trying to stay on messages and, and all that stuff, but things just slip away.
Yeah.
You forget to do it and how to do it. And who was it yesterday?
How to do it. Isn't that strange? Forget how to do that.
How do you do that? How do you tie your shoes? Then somebody yesterday said, they can't talk, and I'm like, I know. I'm like, if I think about what I'm saying, we'll start doing that, and I can't, so there's something going on, like, I guess at a biological level, I don't know, man. I don't know what's it been like for you guys, and you guys are a couple, so, I mean, you've got a little bit more feedback that way.
Well, we experience things a lot differently. I think, beginning of October, I think you're right. I would agree with that. And then that 10, 11, 10, 12, that thing was just like really huge energies. And then from that point, I've been, I work a lot with the sun. And I thought, I've cleared a lot of stuff. It's good. Well, the integration has been crazy. My head, I can't even like form words at some points. You know, painful actually. I'm like, I guess maybe I wasn't as integrated as I thought. You know, so that's been my last 2 weeks, and it's starting to abate now, which I'm thankful for. It feels like not collective; it feels like incoming.
Feels like incoming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That resonates because especially on the body. Like I can't understand why it's taking me 2 hours every morning to get on planet. Like I'm off the planet. I'm off the planet right now. You know, and yeah, I'm serious. I can't I can't like you know, and I know there's some people like this, like Morgan's like this. Gingy Reynolds was on yesterday. She was talking about it. She's always that way. I've not always been that way. I've been like out of it, but now, yeah, but now it's like you're walking around and you're going like this, you know. It's just So I don't know. What about you? What about you, Kurt? How's it been going for you?
I've got a little bit of that. For me, though, you know, like she said, we do experience things a little differently. So for me, it's been more like there's days I've woken up and it's more of like just like a bone weariness, or you know, like I felt like I spent the whole day yesterday working in the yard, but I didn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that kind of thing. But on a certain level, I more to like I went to the gym and you're sore from being at the gym, but it's a good soreness because my body's getting an upgrade. So in that regard, I don't get, you know, and it's not to the same level that she experiences. So it's not debilitating for me, you know, in that I'm an IT person. I go to work every day still. So, and of course I'm talking to people all day long because they got computer issues and that kind of stuff. So for me, I tend to have to be a little bit more functional, you know, because the work world is requiring that of me.
Yeah.
And also tend to try to utilize the energies instead of getting trampled by it. You know, just saying, and it is, everybody experiences stuff differently, but you know, it's kind of a conscious choice that I do. I have an hour commute in the morning and I spend the first like 20 minutes of it in silence in the car, just kind of contemplating some things and trying to set myself for the day and get a feel for, okay, what's today's stink like? You know, what am I going to have to navigate? That kind of stuff. And switch over to some music and, you know, do some singing and do some vocalization and stuff like that. And that helps set me into a place where I can go and exist in it and not, you know, not get it stuck on me kind of.
Yeah. Well, I've talked to a lot of people that have a foot in both worlds. And so there is I think that hour drive is probably a big help too, you know, but
it can be and it can't be, because sometimes the way home you deal with a whole bunch of nonsense and you had a good day, but then you get home and you're frustrated because of all the craziness on the road on the way home.
Yeah, I can't imagine it. I can't imagine being one foot in each world. And it's been a long time since I've been in that situation, but yeah, I think that, you know, you're right. Everybody's different. There's been a lot of people writing about what's happening, and then we lead right up into this election. And, you know, from an energetic standpoint, you know, it is what it is. And then from the the anxiety standpoint, or the you know, being too attached to the literal standpoint, it's all over the place. So that's got to be creating, that in itself has to be creating energetically just all kinds of wildness, chaos, confusion, frustration.
Especially when you're out in the world, because people are so polarized by it. You know, it's like, hey, guess what? In 2 weeks from now, it's still going to be your neighbors who are waiting on you at your local restaurant, your neighbors who are cashiers at your local store. Those are the people that you're going to have to deal with. So if you get all polarized with them, how's that going to help? And on a certain level, it doesn't really matter who gets elected, because those are all the people that you have to interact with. You know, so it's more important in my mind to find the middle ground and try to express messaging about, hey, it's okay. You know, a perfect thing that I saw a picture of the other day was two people waving, one person waving a Biden flag, one person, but they were leaning in and doing a fist bump to each other. and kind of trying to say, hey, I can respect your opinion, you can my opinion. We see things differently, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Instead of just like,
Well, to add to that, so what I'm feeling is all these swirling energies of the collective, which are very, very intense, and I don't really tune into that much. I mean, to me, it's like Netflix. It's like, oh yeah, look, click.
Yeah.
That's what's going on. I have to go into 3D at some point to work. But you have that, and then this incoming, which is extremely intense, and it's the soup that's like, wow, how do you navigate that? This, and then that, and then it's like it's brand new.
Yeah, I agree with you. When you said that at the top of the show, I mean, it is incoming, like it really is. I mean, I know my body, and I've gone through, peaks and valleys or whatever you want to call it. In terms of energy coming down, I can tell. Because it has such an effect on my body. I can tell that way, and the other way I can tell is, I guess the only way I can say it is transformation in my body.
Mm-hmm.
Now that sounds crazy because my hair's falling out and it's going white, and I've got certain certain typical characteristics of a man that's 58 turning 59. You know what I mean? But at the same time, my back, which I had 12 years serious, back problems with, serious problems. Muscles atrophied about 25%. It's never been better. It's like, I picked something up the other day and I heard this, and I thought, oh shit, but it wasn't. It was more like when you crack your knuckles. It was a good crack. I thought, wow, that's weird. And then I started thinking about my back. I'm like, when's the last time you took an anti-inflammatory? But there's other things happening too. It's weird.
Are you finding that the structure of your body is changing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm finding
like the bones are changing. The structure is changing.
Yeah, I'm finding it's weird. I'm finding some things are more in line with what we would call natural aging, or like on par for that, on track for that, and other things are like going, oh, wait a minute, like my eyes, there's sometimes I can't see at all, and sometimes I can see real well. My hearing is like become more and more acute. My sense of smells become more acute. And then, of course, this, what do you call it? It's not a tiredness or a weariness. It's just you wake up and you're like discombobulated.
Yeah.
And it affects your thinking, and it's almost like being out on your feet.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's weird because both, I can see both, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's times where I get on. I do remote work for my job, and I go in sometimes too. And there's times I get on and I'm like, I hope I can remember what I'm supposed to do. It's like seriously. But it comes back, and that actually kind of grounds me. And the 3D has actually been flowing like really, really well. It's strange. So I'm like, okay. So, and I think that goes back to us grounding and physically coming back into our bodies again.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what it is. So like all this is coming in, and like if I told my friend yesterday, I got 2 shows. She's in Australia, so I'm like, I'll call you. I can call you during the show, between the shows, or after the show. She goes, well, yeah, we're like 16 hours, so call me after the second show. There's only 2 shows, and I got off the show and I didn't even think about it. Like if I don't write it down, like I had to go pay rent yesterday, and the night before, I wrote bank because I deposited it as bank in big letters on my notebook next to this in the studio.
Yeah,
because I don't even know if I would have remembered.
I know.
It's weird because some things are like intuition, like telepathy. That's like really gotten loud.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I could give so many examples just in the last 2 or 3 days. And then there's other things where you're not even there, you know? So I don't know. It's tricky.
It's a big mixing bowl. It feels like we're in a big mixer.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. And then I can't see now you guys are you guys are in Utah, right? Or am I wrong?
No, I was in Utah for that week.
You were in Utah. That's why I kept thinking you were from up north, like Pennsylvania or
Michigan.
Michigan. Oh, Michigan, the great state of Michigan with
The great state of Michigan.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I thought. And then when you told me you were in St. George, I was like, wait a minute. I thought they lived because then Morgan even asked me, like, oh no, they live in southern Utah. We can go see them next time we go to Sedona.
I wish I lived in southern Utah.
Yeah, I mean, God, I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah, I don't know. I guess, you know, for me, it's like freaking amazing seeing what's happening. And like, you can tell, like what you're talking about with the energies coming down, what's happening to everyone on a personal level, like signs of transformation and all the different ways that can come out. And, you know, just whatever that is that we've never had before with any consistency, because the shoe always dropped, right? And took you out. And then there's this other thing that's like the old normal that's getting all this pressure put on it. And it's kind of okay. It's like, oh, wow, I'm a zombie in the morning. Oh, I can't remember anything. Oh, I don't even know how to talk. And what am I supposed to do when I get to work? You know, like you're talking about. But it's like you don't freak out about it. It's like there's something, you know what I mean? I can't put my finger on it.
And it's all flowing like in this weird, I mean, it seems like you're a zombie and you're kind of it seems chaotic or whatever, but like underneath there's this flow. I'm like, wow, look at that. This is actually flowing really well.
Yeah.
It's strange.
One interesting thing I've seen a lot of lately, you know, because again, I do IT work and I man the help desk and stuff like that. So I get to literally interact with people one-on-one with their computers and stuff like that. And we're in the midst of a great awakening. You know, I'm interacting with people, and I like to try to hold myself in a state. So if something needs to be said, I don't have to worry about what it is that needs to be said. It just comes out of my mouth. All right. And so as I'm doing, you know, hey, my Outlook doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting with somebody. Next thing you know, I hear something come out of my mouth and I'm just like, why would I say that? No.
Yeah. Like what? Like what? You asking me again? I'm going to choke you to death.
These are the people they're resonating with it, and they'll look at me and they go, you know, I've been thinking about that for 3 days, but I haven't known who to talk about it with. And the next thing you know, we're in this deep discussion about some semi-spiritual topic because these people are having awakenings, and our traditional systems have no way to deal with people who have a spiritual awakening. Okay. You can't go to any typical systems. You can't go to your little emergency care place and be like, oh my God, I had this vision. And they're going to be like, whoa, we have a place for you, you know? So, but it's interesting to see more and more people are getting comfortable talking about these things. And I'm seeing more and more what I would call mainstream individuals or 3D individuals who are bubbling up, and they're having experiences and they're craving ways to do it. And I think a lot of this is, and I think we talked about this last time, but I think a lot of it is due to people being confined in their homes and the whole COVID thing. There's a really big spiritual awakening that's happening because of that. And there's this opportunity in the midst of all this craziness for a huge uplifting for the whole populace, you know, and it's not just in America, it's globally happening, you know?
Of course, yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's a good point too, is like we think and you would think that a great awakening, you know, would be like this but it's not. It's not. It's really not. And it's not a bad thing. But it is, well, and I think again, you know,
baby steps.
I'd like to share a story of something that happened to me at work. So, company, okay, and I've been one of my fellow employees, and he came in my office, I've never ever had a conversation like this with him. Normally it's like, hey, how you doing? How's, So anyway, it was the election. We started kind of talking about that, and I was pretty raw. I mean, things were coming out of my mouth because I was just like in pain and work. And all of a sudden coming out of my mouth, well, do you know David Icke? He was like, yeah, I've been watching. I never would have had it with him like this before, ever. I mean, and so, yeah, well, this platform that I follow is going to be having him on. And so he said to me, he goes, well, what he knew David Icke and kind of, how his belief or his way of looking at things. He understands that, the conspiracy and all. And he goes, well, what is the platform that's interviewing him doing? And then it stuck in my throat because I'm so used to that light worker thing. Like I have to dumb it down. Right.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I kind of like sidestepped it, and he looked at me and he goes, oh, it's quantum physics. He's like, it's, so he's explaining all this light worker stuff. And I'm like, there you go. Wow. That's the platform it's going to be on. I mean, I was like, my jaw was on the ground. I'm like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I go, that I went to Tibet and, yoga, and that they come at it from the quantum physics. He's like, oh no. And so I was just like, wow, I cannot believe I just had this conversation.
Yeah. This is, and this is it. And so it's like these little dots on the map on the road that they're just like everyday things. They're like, we would call them little things, that are actually gluing this whole thing together, and then you get on, I get on this morning. Hey, I'm not going to deny it. I don't care who wins. I think whatever happens is what's meant to happen, and we all chose it to happen. That's not a cliche, but I'm also got that human part of me that's curious to see what the F's going on.
Yeah.
And there is some pretty crazy stuff going on. I'm not saying anybody is right or wrong.
No.
Yeah.
Because it's not about that. But so I'm looking at the poll totals. I'm like, man, that's too weird. Like that, this is just like something's going on. But my point is, and then I'm watching these reporters as I skim through different videos, wearing a mask, which kind of blows my mind. I mean, it's not about mask or no mask, but why would I be a reporter facing a camera, or a politician for that matter, that I'm not, not within 6 feet of anybody? You can't even understand anybody when they got the damn thing on. And I'm like, so don't tell me that they're not purposely trying, you know what I mean? They, which is us. But so like, I see all that and I'm just like going, wow, this is actually getting really cool. It's actually getting really cool because you have these really loud things happening. And then on the road, you got these little occurrences like you're talking about, like somebody just wrote about, talking to their family, and all this stuff came out of their mouth, Heather Nielsen. And then you're like going, where did that come from? You're like channeling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like with people that were, that you wouldn't normally do that with.
I would have never, ever, no way. And they're like, oh yeah. Yeah, that's a normal conversation. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
The mass stuff and the stuff on the media, I don't get on media much, but when I do, it's like, wow, it's bizarre. It's like circus time. I'm like, wow.
Well, maybe that's what has to happen. It just has to get so distorted. And I think that is what's happening. It just gets so distorted that people, people just kind of go, hello, like, yeah. It's like Kurt said though, too, because like 2 weeks from now, what's going to happen? You still have your neighbor over here. You still have, you know what I mean? You still go to the same restaurant. You get the same waitress, waiter, the same store manager over here. You know what I mean? Like life goes on, it's just like.
Right.
And it isn't that kind of what life is about, is how we treat each other and how, you know what I mean? Isn't that kind of our world? How, how we're creating our world and how we can be kind, how we can work through these things together. And I think your platform, that's why your platform it resonates so much, because it's like, it's the safe space, and you can work some of these things out, that are sticking.
Yeah. 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 We've been talking about that for a couple, 2-3 days, because that website's coming out. Our website's coming out, which is our website. I want to say everyone here. It's a community thing. It'll be built by the community. So one of the girls put up a post that said, "Can you give us a review about soulogy?" And then we filmed a little video with Michael Mejia, was the moderator last night, just to put on the website, that was, about soulogy, like what does soulogy mean, and so. But in regard to that, reading, and this isn't about soulogy. I actually believe this is about soulogy just being one component that is reflective of what's happening collectively with people, with groups, kind of like what y'all are talking about. And it's like, hey, I thought I was alone until I found these people.
Yeah.
So that's no different than you talking to this guy and, oh yeah, I know David Icke. Oh, you want to talk quantum? Like, oh, did you know that? Like we're standing right next to each other, and we didn't even know we were standing right next to each other. And I think that, I guess what I'm getting at is that I feel that the consciousness that we all talk about is actually more prevalent in the common people, the 99%, than we think it is. Like, it's really, really out there,
I think that's a very good point, Todd. I really do. It's much more than, us as light workers or whatever we're doing, whatever that is. I think you're right.
I think it's been amplified this year as the year's gone on. And, again, because people have had these opportunities to spend quiet time at home, and it's been forced on them. It's like everybody had to go to an ashram and do some yogic practices unbeknownst to them, and so with that inherently comes some growth. And so now all of a sudden amazing things begin to happen when you have 10 million people have growth. Even if it's only a little bit of growth, 10 million people having growth, everything, elevates in an amazing way, That, to me, that's where quantum change comes in, is when you start to have just a little bit of movement, but a whole bunch of people have a little bit of movement. Whew, amazing things.
So,
instead
like,
of it's on, we have to bring this giant thing in that's going to change everything.
That's what I like to do.
Yeah. It's like, no, baby steps. Just, let's take some baby steps. You'll be amazed at what happens,
No, I agree. You know what? It's I can equate it to like the banks, right? Like you have a holiday on Monday, or like I said, a bank holiday on Monday. And I used to know this very well because I operated off of a cash card, and you'd have to transfer the money in from PayPal, and then you'd have to wait 24 hours. And so I watched them evolve. Okay, and change their practices, because they would hold the money longer and longer. But I can equate this to that, because, like, say you had a long weekend, and you have, or even if you just delayed everybody one day, you have, 10 million people with 10 million accounts, and you make $1 off of each one of them for one extra day.
It's a lot.
You know what I'm saying? But and to his point, you're talking about a lot of consciousness.
Yes.
Right. So, like, everybody marinates in something that, we're affected by, or whatever the election, whatever, something coming down, because that's really probably what it is. This stuff coming down, because you're seeing it. You're seeing these episodes like y'all are both talking about at work and in your own lives. And then you're also seeing the other end of it, where people are like totally like, they're in so deep into the narrative that they're, picking up guns, and they're like protesting, and they're punching people, and they're like going bananas. Yeah. So it's like that energy is, in the best of terms, in the best of ways, like, and I mean that like, it's brutal. It's like brutally honest. And And I mean brutal as in a term of endearment, but it is. And so, yeah. And the other thing too is you can't take your eye off of it. Like I think Kurt said this a minute ago. Like you can like, oh, I'm doing great today. Like, okay, I got this, everything's good, and then as soon as you take your eye off the ball, boom, you get hit. And it's not necessarily like a bad thing, like from our old patterns and old, say, pre-awakening lifestyles, but it is enough to say gut check, like, hey, don't get too cocky, or we'll kick you in the ass.
The humbleness factor, man, it's so true. And I think things are moving so incredibly fast. That's why we can't afford to take your eye out the ball, in many different ways. Is it's coming in manifesting or whatever, but I'm finding that it has to be softened. Yeah. There has to be kind of like that peripheral gaze type thing. It can't just be like, it's too exhausting. It's way too exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you hit on the head though when you said you can't take your eye off of it, which is why, like I struggle with it more on my drive home because I'm done with the day, right? So I'm kind of in a wind down mode and just not paying as much attention because you're like, oh, I'm done for the day. I don't have to gear anything up, and then that leaves the door open for nonsense to come in because you're not. If I have a protocol I go through in the morning, then you're very focused and, there's no room for anything else to come in because you're just on task. And then if you're just kind of, it's been a rough day, I'm just going to do nothing, Yeah,
it's literally like going from one world to another. And I don't do it to the extent you do because I don't have that type of situation, but it can be something as simple as, okay, I live in a small town, so we have to go to Walmart a lot. So it's like, okay, I'm going to Walmart and Morgan, and I always do the grocery thing, or the store thing. Like, okay, there's 3 things or 4 things, process association. I've always operated that way. So I'll say, I'm going, and she'll say, well, can you get this too? And I'm like, okay, that's 3, now 4. I got it. It's this. Then I'll get to Walmart, and I mean, literally walking in the parking lot, I'll be like, I got to get this, and this. And I could easily put it on my phone or write on a piece of paper, but I don't. And it's like I've got to like totally focus. And then I walk in and there's all these people and all this energy, and you're like, okay, where do you find cooking oil? I don't know how to explain it, but it's like dipping down into this environment that's very alien now.
Yes.
And I can't imagine. I really can't imagine being, walking like y'all are doing, when you go into the office, going from one to the other. I mean, it's almost weird. I'd almost feel like Superman and Clark Kent, like I'm Clark Kent, now I'm Superman. I'm Clark Kent, now I'm Superman.
I like being
Jekyll Hyde.
I like
Jekyll Hyde.
You're under the radar, right? You're like slipping little things in on people and stuff. I think the other thing, and I think this is a topic you guys have talked about probably a number of times, but how fast things shift now. If I'm driving home and I take my attention off or my eyes off the ball, it shifts like that. All of a sudden, somebody pulls in front of me and they're going 10 miles under, and I'm like, what? Oh, and I start to get upset, and then I'm like, whoa. Slow down. I'm in charge of my world. I bring my intention back into play. And then you know what happens? They turn at the next intersection and they're gone. Okay. But if I don't bring it back into play, they're in front of me for the whole rest of the drive home.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And they're
That's
just
right.
going boom, 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 giving me the gears.
Yeah.
It's not really them. It's me on a certain level.
No, that's like, okay. So that's like the perfect anecdote, to express whatever that is, because it's true. We know this. Like you know this. I mean,
right.
It's in the sacred text, and you create your reality. But there is something happening now. I mean, this happened to me last night, laying down with Morgan. And I remember the same type of thread came through, and I was seeing but it's actually happening real time, and it's so human. Like, oh, that's just a coincidence. Like that guy got out of your way. It was just a coincidence, but it's not. It's like
happening too often.
Exactly. It's far too. It's far. There's way too many connectors. When I when I can watch, I bring it back in, and within minutes. I mean, it used to take hours before things would shift, and now it's minutes or seconds. You know what I mean? Like I dial it in, boom, the car disappears. It turns, it gets in the turn lane, or puts its blinkers on and literally pulls over, and I go by, and then they turn their blinkers off and get back in behind me. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah, or how about this? Okay, you're walking around, you're maybe in a shit mood, you got shitty things going in your head, you're projecting and you're externalizing, and all of a sudden, bam, you hit your head on the door or on the wall. No, I'm serious. Like the universe is going, hey pal, boom.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, you bust your ass, you slam your finger in the door. I mean, little things that like just go, hey, wake the fuck up. Don't go back and swim in those muddy waters, those shallow muddy waters. That's happened to me a lot, and I tend to be. I've had a history of being a little accident prone, like Mr. Magoo, but this is different. It's like reminders. It's like slaps and nudges and elbows in the gut.
Well, mind your thoughts. Mind your thoughts. Mind your thoughts. It's just reminders.
There's another thing that's happening too, and I want to ask you about this. Now, I know everybody has different clairs, but in mine, I've always gotten these tones, and they're just so. This would be the clair I get, I guess. And what I'm noticing, and I've noticed it before, but it's really, really getting strong. And that's when there is a certain alignment within myself. Now, usually it's about when I lay down with Morgan, like it happened last night. And I'm like going, kind of like what Kurt was talking about. Like, this is all me. This is all me. I mean, there's nothing out there. It's all me. What do I want to present to myself? So I have this whole thing going. And all of a sudden, I said something, and I think it had to do with Morgan and I actually being, we're actually one in this moment. Like I'm conceived. So it was kind of a high level, but it wasn't. And all of a sudden this tone goes off. There's no words. It's got a little beat to it. And I can almost make out the message word for word, which is like, just align with this. The more you do. So these are atypical things that are taking on a kind of a physical, five-sensical type of communication, or confirmation. And I don't know how other people are. And maybe that's something very similar to what Kurt's talking about with the guy getting out of the way. But the confirmation, the validation is becoming very much part of the five senses, I guess is what I'm saying. And that's a little bit different too for me.
I think you're spot on in that I would describe it as it plugs into each person's modalities. You know what I mean? Because some person may be visual, then they're going to have a visual kind of tie-in. Somebody else might be auditory or taste or smell or whatever, but it's coming through the senses. And I think for a big reason for a lot of people is it's easier to kind of self-validate that when you kind of feel it coming through your senses, and you can be like, okay, I'm not going crazy. This is real. You know what I mean? Because I think sometimes for a lot of us that have been doing this work for a while, you start to look at what you're thinking about and what you think you're doing and all this stuff. And then you're like, am I just in La La Land? Is this really happening?
Yeah, right.
or am I just, just living on Fantasy Island, and I just forgot to get off when my time was up, And so I think by having it relatable within the five senses, that questioning is lessened, and we get to feel that it is, this is all legit. It is happening.
That's a good point. That's a good point because we've all been through that. Like all of us have been through that where you're going, man, am I actually just like, off my rocker? Like even once you're in the community and you would have things happen and you would question yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe not like 5 years ago, but to his point, how many people, like the people you interacted with, the guy you interacted with talking about David Icke or whoever, how many people are just getting to that stage? How many of those people are going, wow, am I losing my mind? You know what I mean? Like they're at that level I've got to believe that there's more support energetically for them not to question themselves so much. But at the same time, you can look at the other end of the spectrum and say, man, these things are getting so distorted. That might even create more fear in them and, more denial in them. I don't know.
That's a really good point. People who maybe are just starting to get glimpses or waking up or whatever, it's like with all the fear and then, the opening, it's like that could be really confusing, and for me, it's like that helps with some compassion, because sometimes I don't have a lot of compassion, when something happen at work or whatever. But yeah, I mean, to be in that position, we've all been there, a lot. It's confusing, and the energies are off the chart, and you don't know how you're reacting.
I think another big differentiator, though, for the people that are just starting to hit that is, 10 years ago, there wasn't the wealth of online videos. There wasn't the wealth of these communities that existed out there. There wasn't a well-developed social media environment. And so now there's a lot more support groups or tools or things out there. Somebody can have a feeling, they can hit a Google search, and now a whole bunch of stuff comes up with people that have had similar experiences, and they've done blog postings about it, and there's instant validation for them that they're not insane. Whereas 10, 20 years ago, for those of us that have been doing this work for a long time, we didn't have the tools to do the searches. And when we did the searches, there wasn't a lot of stuff out there. And so then it led to us kind of, having more self-doubt, I think. And because the energies are much more conducive for this work right now, it's a lot easier for them to not only just pick up the tools, but blow right by that point, which maybe we got stuck at for a year or 2 or 5 or whatever. They're hitting it, and 10 minutes later, they're already on to the next tool and the next thing, and they just watched a video about, quantum manifestation, and they're like, oh my God, I can't wait to play with these new things, and it took us years to find technology.
Isn't it, when one walks, isn't it easier for others to follow? Like, isn't that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. It is. No doubt. So I don't know. It's there's so many things that are coming into the conscious, regardless of what, whether you've, pursued, let's just say, an open-minded spiritual path. You could be a Catholic, you could be, Jewish, you could be atheist, but there's so many things coming into the consciousness this year, which, if you look at it, like the COVID thing, the masks, the quarantines that go with it, the toilet paper, this election, there's just so much distortion coming in. I love what Franco Di Nicola said in particular about this election, which was about 2 weeks before it started. We hooked back up for a show, and he said when he plugged in, he said we still had not decided who was going to win.
Oh, wow.
For lack of a better word. He said both will end up at the same place, and that what will occur is that transparency will continue to increase. And I believe what he actually said was that if it was the blue line, it was the Democratic line, that either way, it would all kind of come to a head in 2 to 3 years, but that it would be faster through the Democratic path because there's less, there's less meat and potatoes. In other words, and that's not a political statement. What I'm saying is, because transparency is going to push for the truth, there's a lot of stuff to be unveiled there.
Yeah.
And as a result of, oh my God, this is going on, kind of like 9/11 frequency, oh my God, this happened, that it will accelerate it. And what I'm getting at is that, to me, makes a lot of sense, because it's a continuation of what's occurred this year. Like, literally, like I watched a video last night before I went to bed. I just happened to catch it on Facebook on the video thing, right? I just was like going down looking for something.
Right.
And it was an Australian dude, who was really cool. He went to go pick up a kid at school. He had a mask on, and I guess it was like a Halloween mask, because the headmistress came out and said, you need to take your mask off. He said, go F yourself, and, I'm just here to pick up my kid. I'm not taking a mask off. And so a cop came, and they had this exchange, and this guy really held his ground. It was funny. But things like that, like these things that are like becoming common, and not just on videos, but just in daily life. You know, I think a lot of people this year have had or observed or had exchanges or watched exchanges at the store, at the gas station, you know what I mean, or at the doctor's office, or you know, post office, where people like, you know, mass this, or you know, people are, you know what I mean. So there's a lot of stuff presenting itself, I think, to catalyze us, basically.
Well, isn't it Lori Ladd who said that, you know, we're choosing moment to moment, and even guidance can't be like, well, this is what's going to happen, because there's a zillion different timelines that we're stepping into, and we're choosing moment to moment. So this is even happening on collective. And I think what Franco said, that's really interesting. I didn't hear that. So it really, because they're just playing this out to, you know, it's a ruse. They're playing the option out.
Well, yeah, we're choosing. I was talking to Morgan last night, and you know, and we were talking to a friend of ours, and then she was like, you know, so we go into dream state, and it's non-linear, like however that works. And we all sit there and, you know, she's saying, like, we all plan, we talk, we plan, and what are we going to do when we get back to the conscious, you know, and that's very true. And even like years ago, when I was downloading some stuff about like how planets work, there were other people that I found that were getting kind of the same thing, which had to do with basically, like, you know, let's just say metaphorically, we all go to sleep. When we go to sleep, all of our information and code is shared. Everybody has the same level of intelligence, information, code, wisdom, whatever. And then we consciously wake up and we conduct our next day.
Yeah.
And kind of like we are as humans. And then we go to sleep. And I think that's there's a lot to be said for that in terms of the decision making. Yeah. We all have a hand in this. And I know that sounds crazy. How can one person or one soul out of whatever 8 billion have a hand and really have a vote? Well, they do.
Yeah.
Like, it's true, you know.
Right.
It's no different than what Kurt said about driving down the road and saying, no, I'm not going to go that route, and go into, you know, projection or anger, and then look what happens. I mean, there's no doubt.
Another thing, I think, as people are bubbling up and becoming more conscious, and you know, we could start the COVID consciousness if we want to, but as that's happening, I think what's also happening with that is every time somebody kind of bubbles up in their consciousness, a whole new set of possibilities open up. So as more and more people are waking up, more and more possibilities are opening up, and the universe is expanding and expanding, you know, so that there's more and more possibility, because as we all come together, right, if we all come together in a certain consciousness, that opens up new realities and new possibilities. And so as everybody begins to wake up, I think that's also opening up new timelines. And I think the statement you made earlier about your guest is a perfect example of it. We were 2 weeks out from the election, and we had no idea who we wanted, you know, because people are awakening to the idea that they're making a choice to make their house payment, that they don't have to do that, that it's a choice they're making. And if they don't like that choice, they can make different choices. And when you come to that realization, all of a sudden, all these things open up for you that, oh, look, oh, I actually have control of what's going on in my life. Yeah. You know, I'm not a slave anymore. I'm not being run rampant. Or, okay, I'm going to choose to be a slave for a short term until I can do it in a fashion that's not so painful, you know. But again, they're awakening to possibilities, you know.
Yeah. I think it was Eric Rankin was on yesterday, and he said, I think he was quoting Terrence McKenna, and he was talking about this space that comes out of the chaos, or that's within the chaos itself, and how, you know, chaos always precedes creation. And it's a point, a lot like what you were just talking about, where there are more possibilities created, and where potential meets possibilities. Like, you know what I mean? Like that field of potential grows because more possibilities are created. And then a lady was on last week, and she said, because we were talking about visitation, or energies presenting themselves to you, you know, like we were talking about protection and you know, how that's kind of changed now and people are more self-empowered. And she said, it's always been real easy for me. She says, because if something presents itself to me, in that as a result of that encounter or while it's happening, I just ask myself, is this creating more choice for me?
Ah.
And I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. I mean, that's like, whether it's, say, a dark energy from my perception or a light, am I shutting down? Am I putting a wall up? Or am I actually opening up more?
An expansion or a contraction?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
I thought that was a really cool comment.
Yeah, because it's not light and dark anymore. It's really, it's not really that. I mean, it is, but it isn't. So yeah.
It's interesting while you were saying that, I actually had a memory from my youth of my mother. And when things would happen, one of the things that she would say to me was, how are you going to handle it?
Yeah.
So she wasn't putting me in a box. She was basically showing me, hey, how are you going to handle it? There's a raft of choices that you can make, not telling me, here's 2 choices, what are you going to do, or anything like that, but just, kind of subtly pointing out, hey, look, there's all this stuff here that's available to you. How are you going to handle it?
Well, it's
That's
choice.
a good point.
That's our sovereignty is a choice.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's kind of like somebody saying to me, who are you going to vote for? Which one are you going to vote for? And I said, there's a third choice. And they're like, what? I said, my feet.
Right.
So, and I'm not trying to, but I'm just giving a little story about what you're saying because it's true. If you think about it,
there's always another choice. We just can't always see it or cognitize it, but it always exists out there, you know?
Yeah.
A myriad of choices, right?
Yeah. It's going to be it's going to be a very interesting rest of the year, and it's going to be, I mean, a year. Who would have thought? Seriously, even on a collective, literal experience from the human perspective, without taking into account anything else,
right?
That you go back 1 year, and because I mean, this started like what, late February, early March with the COVID. But you go back 1 year, and the things that have played out in the literal world, I mean, some of it we might have went, oh, that's possible, but some of it you would have been like, there's no way.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no way they're going to arrest a pregnant woman watching a football game when there's 42 people in the stands. You know, I mean, some of the stuff you're just like going, there's no way.
You can't. You're like, did that really even happen? Is that something weird? You know, a glitch or something? It's like, no, I think it really happened. Yeah.
It makes you wonder. It makes me wonder because I'm very, I'm like, okay, is that staged? Is that a psyop? Is that like a opposition controlled type of thing? And you know what? It's gotten so blurry. For me, anyway, it's like, and this has been a while, that I just go, don't even go there.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't even waste your time. I
feel it. I feel like it's a big soup. I think it's a mix of everything. I really do.
Yeah.
Underneath it all, though, as I've been looking at it, what I think, unbeknownst to some of the people that are employing those absurdity strategies, is that it's actually making legitimate messaging that used to be like, you can talk to people about UFOs and you're not foil hat boy anymore because things have gotten so absurd that there's actually certain things that you can talk about with people that are almost mainstream that 10 years ago you couldn't talk to people about. You know what I mean?
Very true. Very true.
I think that there's method to the madness, unbeknownst to the people presenting the madness, that underneath it, it's allowing certain things to come out and be accepted because people's horizons are being broadened by all this absurdity, that now they're a little bit looking at some things that are now in the middle because the fringes have been stretched so far. These are no longer at the fringe, and they almost feel like mainstream items.
Yeah, and I think the initial door that opens is like, if you use 9/11 as an example, most people, including myself, I bought the programming. I remember the day, I'm like, wow, this is crazy, and I don't know if I was as like, let's go bomb people. I wasn't like that, but I was like, wow, this happened. And I just took it at face value. And then And then you find out that, hey, there's a house of cards here.
Yeah.
Right? And then to Kurt's point, it's like, okay, well, if that's the case here, what else is there? Right. And I think this is like what he's talking about with the UFO thing. I just watched a movie 3 nights ago. It's called The Phenomenon. It's a new movie. It's on Prime Video. It's very good. And I was a bit amazed at the level of revelation, which had to be okayed by the government. It was going back to 2017, talking about what the CIA released, and it was actually getting into all that stuff. But what was interesting about it was the level of cover-up that they were allowing to be revealed.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, now wouldn't this be interesting? Because it's not conspiracy. It's government employees, generals, admirals,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
that. And what would happen if they took this distortion off of the, say, mainstream media, and they put this movie out, you know, and put it out and gave it the type of exposure that, you know, your common headlines or whatever propaganda gets. It would not take, I mean, the level of transformation would be like that.
Yeah.
You know, because the way we're made up, consciously and not, and the way the energy is now, our brains, our field is like a sponge.
Yeah.
And it can convert, you know, like, okay, this is garbage out, good in, whatever the case is. I mean, the level of transformation, and I believe it'll happen.
Yes.
And that's what I was saying. To his point, I think that's actually how it works. You know, it's like subtle. It's like under the radar.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's happening, no doubt.
Well, and more people, it'd be interesting to know what that mix is. They aren't taking things at face value anymore. Whereas things like the 9/11, we're like, oh yeah, that happened, until we learn more and more.
Yeah.
Like now a lot of people are just saying, yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. And begin. So to me, like the false flag frequency has pretty much run its course.
Yeah.
So there's enough people out there questioning masks and quarantines. I mean, there's a lot of split out there.
Yeah.
There's people I know that say, I wear a mask for other people. I don't believe in it, but I wear it for other people. So there's several different positions there. And then there's the rebellious, I'm not wearing a mask no matter what, you know.
Yeah.
And then there, you know, I mean, so, but I think because of the distortion that, and I don't know, what do you call it? Like it's just inane. It's silly. It's like, it gets to the point where you just go, wait a minute, I choose me, or I choose me and my family, or I choose me and my partner, or whatever.
It's just such a distraction. You know, and I think people are getting tired of it, and they're just that's why another reason they're going inside, because they're like, I can't deal with it. It's too much.
Yeah, exactly.
Or it's boring. It's completely boring. You know?
I think another interesting thing that's happening is you've got a lot of these old power players that are just barging forward, okay? And they're not seeing that they knew things used to subtly shift, but they're not understanding that the pace of change has vastly accelerated on them. And I'm going to use Quibi as a perfect example of that, which was this video platform that Katzenberg launched right as COVID hit, okay? And everybody had tried to tell him that, hey, this isn't a good idea. Everything's changing with COVID. It's not going to work well. Well, he just plowed forward, did what he wanted to do. And because of the huge shift in how everything changed, their whole thing was geared around basically 5-10 minute short things that people could consume as they go in between meetings, as they're out and about in the world and all that. Well, COVID changed everything. Now people have time to sit at home and watch soulology videos and watch longer stuff. And so that whole platform fell apart in less than a year. It went belly up and it's gone.
That's the dude. That's the dude.
Forward.
Katzenberg. That's the dude that was aligned with Spielberg and that.
Yes.
Okay, Geffen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty strong.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
And I how do I say this? I see just recently, like in the last 24 hours, how do I say this without saying what I'm trying to say? But so I see this thing, and it was shown to me like as an individual, but not for me, but like this is I don't know how to explain it. Like this is available, this is happening. In my opinion, it will happen somewhere more than once. But what I saw was like this explosion, a very organic explosion that was totally non-typical and non-conventional, and that was literally from the roots, the people. And it was like, and so like when you tell me that about Katzenberg, like it's almost like the antithesis of it, right? Where his dived, this one exploded. Yeah, I think, and I remember seeing this a few years back. Now a lot of this stuff was given to me like with Soulogy being the being the brand on it or whatever, but I knew it was a collective kind of thing. And I think, and what I saw was like this groundswell, boots on the ground growth, like organism that just mushroomed, and it was so fast, so furious, so much volume to it that there's nothing anyone could do about it. Right? Yeah. It was literally, the literal wave, right? And so that's interesting that you said that. I didn't know that about him. I didn't know that you said that to me is not a coincidence, because it made some things click from the last 24 hours.
Right.
Far out, man.
I think the other thing that's happening is a lot of, and I'm going to just use the term ancient for lack of a better word, but a lot of really old technologies that have been hidden from our consciousness because we're raising our consciousness are now coming back in, and they're not always coming from external. They may have always just been latent here. And as we raise our consciousness, suddenly we become aware of them. And it's like you suddenly find this magnificent hammer in your backyard, and you're like, oh my God, I can hammer nails like I've never been able to hammer nails before. And it's not just happening to people that are quote unquote light workers. You've got people that are rising up and things are happening to them, and they start talking about something, and you might even go, wait, what did you just say? Oh my goodness, So to me, that's super exciting too, because it's coming in everywhere, and that's
a good point.
Comment in my mind, because that's what helps build that. It gives you that groundswell of energy, and then all of a sudden you wake up in the morning and the mushroom's there. Poof.
Yeah, that's it. That's a good point. Delia just said light activation from within, and it's like, you're right. Like you can be talking to some. It's like when Scarlet was talking to that guy. Said, "Do you know David Icke?" Like there certain things can just like they're activations.
Yes.
And wow, that's true. And that is happening a lot. Yeah. That's happening more and more and more. And I think as more and more streams of consciousness, or we might call groups, like they're not awake and we're awake and this and that, they're kind of like coming together like that because of these one-to-one interactions. Yeah.
My question: do you think we're in the mushroom? Do you think we're in the mushroom, or is the mushroom coming?
I think you're right. I think
it's amassing like this. The roots are all forming, but it hasn't quite popped yet.
I think I can see that. I think for me in the energetic field, it's happened, and now we're playing like, how is this going to roll out?
Okay.
Like in the physical, because we know in the energetic field it always happens first.
It's already done.
Yeah, it's done there. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like with we were talking to our friends last night, and Morgan, because my friend, he was like, "You guys need to do more shows on sacred sexuality," But anyway, she was explaining how it happens up there, and what's been happening to it lately, and it comes down more and more and more. And she made the joke like, and it's going to be in the physical pretty quick, But I think that's actually how it works, and that's a really good question. And this goes back to the thing about Franco, or what Morgan talked about, or like, how we haven't quite decided how this is going to go.
Yeah,
we want to maximize the potential, and maybe that means, for instance, like in the case of the election, Trump wins, and then this other side of the spectrum pushes back on that, or vice versa, you know, and he loses, and you know, the court gets involved and people push back this way. Like, where are we going to get the biggest potential? Where are we going to get the biggest lift out of it?
Yeah.
And I know from a human standpoint, that doesn't really jive, but we're not human anymore. And that's another thing, like Kurt was talking about. Everybody is coming into this atmosphere that has more and more to be revealed and remembered.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Right on, man. It's good seeing y'all. Now that I know where you live. We'll have to do it again. No doubt. Yeah. I'm glad I started with y'all this morning because it's going to be a long day.
We'll give you some extra energy.
Yeah, we'll send you some.
I appreciate y'all's love and support as well. And I don't miss on that. I mean, I don't miss that. I see you every day. And I want to thank you for that.
Thank you for all you're doing. And if you guys are in Florida, I'll be in Florida. Hit me up in January.
You're going to be in Florida.
Yeah. I will be.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So if you're, hit me up if you're down there.
All righty. Sounds good. All right. Y'all take care. Thank you.
Bye.